yeah, there should be a fix for that in 2B46. That's one of the things that's coming in 2B46. There was some avatar loading issues have been worked on and resolved. Hopefully, there's a known issue that sometimes like some particular outfits cause more than others. We're nailing down the exact. It's kind of thing where we have to gather a bunch of information and try and figure out exactly which piece of item it is. It's not even necessarily a particular outfit, but it might be like a particular shirt or shoes that person's wearing, and then we have to figure out what's wrong with that particular one. So it's a big issue to like, okay, we know this person didn't load, but we have to figure out what they were wearing and which they were wearing, and it's time consuming and tedious, but we're tracking down those issues. I see a sidearm showed up with a low poly avatar.
Not only that, Joshua, last week in 1B44, this low poly avatar was stuck in a frozen T pose, and I thought, this is a terrible avatar to use for break room demos. And Karsten explained to me that if I would use 2B45, it was fully animated. And ta-da!
Yeah, no, break room, the white label grids, especially break room, they're 2018 viewers only, and there's a lot of content on them that doesn't work with the older 1B series viewer. So yeah, that's why we're like, we want to get rid of the 1B series viewer, and we're actually having another review meeting about that tomorrow morning. About are we ready to drop 1B entirely? I think we have that conversation a couple times a week. Like, what are we still got our foot on the brake?
I always have to delete the whole Sciencebase registry so my avatar stops being. Yeah, you shouldn't have to be messing with your registry for that. There is a known issue with like the last couple of viewers, like 2B43 through 45, I think, where your avatar might stay blue for a while and then load after several minutes. But like I said, that should be resolved in like 2B46 when that comes out, and if it's not, then we'll take a look at that again. But you should not be having to do anything with your registry in order to get around that. And Carson, yeah, if you catch it again and you can find it, if you do know what outfit it was, even if it's just the outfit ID, send that information to us. More information never hurts. And Cubs in here, or as Artemis says, the Cubster. Is that your new nickname? Should we all be calling you that?
Who? Since when am I the Cubster? Side note: finally fixed my voice issue.
Excellent. I'll be calling you that.
Ooh, you were right. It was definitely my computer.
Well, when you're the person having the problem and everybody else isn't, it usually means it's your computer. I just had to help Rowan solve an issue on his as well. So, computers are temperamental things. You can have computers that are 99% identical, but one person has a slightly newer driver, or one person has a slightly different headset, and the whole thing it falls apart. Every computer's got their own unique personality. One person has a slightly driver, or one person has a slightly different headset, and the whole thing it falls apart. Every computer's got and I'm hearing myself slightly delayed. So somebody have like the Twitch stream open and it's restreamed back into Sciencebase there through their microphone, because I'm getting a slight echo of myself. Like the stream open and it's restreamed back into, and it's still there. So if you've got Twitch open or something, then please turn off your microphone so it's not.
I thought you were throwing your voice there for.
It's still do you know what's causing that, or can we fix that real quick? And please turn off your microphone.
Trying to spot who's doing it.
Yeah. It's not a bug, it's a feature. That's right. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's very quiet in my, but it's a little bit distracting hearing myself talk over myself. It's not a bug. It's a feature. That's right. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's very quiet in my, but it's a little bit distracting hearing myself. All right, so we're live now. I assume we've been live for several minutes now, but I'll just kind of start back at the top here and just say welcome everybody to Office Hours. If you've got any questions, feel free to throw them into the assembly chat or message them to me directly or however you want to get them to us. I don't think Dolome's here today. She's traveling, so she's on the road right now. So if you message her, you're wasting your time. But you can message me and any of the other community staff members that are here, or just like I said, drop it in chat, and we'll pick it up from there. YouTube stream for this, Paul. Do we have are we going out to YouTube also? And do we have a link for that we can give out? Or is that okay? Yeah, if you can grab a URL for it and drop it in the chat or something, that'd be great. Or is that yeah, Gabby, we're trying to figure that out also. Somebody's got their speakers feeding into their microphone, so we're getting a little bit of an echo of everything that I say here. I'm not sure who left their mic. Speakers feeding into their microphone. I guess I could just start muting people at random and hope I get the right person. I don't see any. It's so quiet.
Yeah, I don't see any green lines. I can't figure out who.
Yeah. Well, if we have to start muting people at random, we could do that and see what happens. Brazana is not her. Never uses her mic. Yeah.
That's not going to work if they're not talking.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's just see if we can ignore that for the moment. Paul just dropped the stream chat there. And let's see, questions. Cub blessed us with his presence today to poke us about multi-pose. You see it in the editor now. Yes. The seat improved component does have a place now where you can drop in additional animations besides the default. It doesn't do anything yet if you do add it in there. The component has been updated, but the viewer has not had a UI update put in for it yet to make those poses show up anywhere. So we have to add a new window that pops up when you sit down. That's populated with buttons for each of those. So that's something that still needs to be done. I'd like to do that in the near future, just because it's a much requested feature. But it was one of those things where we talked a little bit about last week and the week before, where new features have gotten deprioritized over bug fixing and content regression issues, so that we can finish pushing out the 2018 viewer, and then once the 2018 viewer is out, then we can all go back to doing the fun stuff, which is doing things like finishing the multi-pose. And I want to add not just multi-poses in there, but you'll notice there's also a spot to add like one-off gestures you can have built in. Not just change how you're sitting, but like do things like clap or raise your hand or whatever, things that are meant to be not a permanent change, but to have some kind of interactive element when you're participating in like something like this or any other kind of live event. Let's see, questions. The component also has a control panel override. It means we can change the menu that pops up. Yeah, I built that in there with the idea that like if you drop in animations and gestures, we're going to have a native user interface for that. So you'll sit down and one of these floating windows will pop up like you have for chat or anything like else, all the movable resizable windows that pop up. And that's just going to be built into the viewer. But if you decide for whatever reason that you want to have your own interface for it, your own canvas, or you don't want to have a pop-up at all, you want to control it through script or something, then you'll just drop something into that control panel override. And if there is an override there, then our native UI will be suppressed. It won't pop up, and you'll be able to do whatever custom thing you want with it. Inquisitive Loon says, I have old computers as the quickest old computer on the quickest old computer setting. All three computers cannot fully load into a science-based region using the July 2019 version. I can get in, stops loading. Can you please add this older version so people with older computers can get into Sciencebase? I would be curious, yeah, if you tried the 2B series viewers, the preview viewers that we have versus the live viewer, a lot of optimization work has gone into the 2B viewer. The 1B viewer is quite old now. All the new stuff, the new work is going into the 2B viewer. So if you haven't given that a try, I would go to preview.sign.space/download and grab the latest viewer from there and give that a try. It should be much faster all around. We've had a lot of issues fixed with it. If you're still having problems with it, if you download 2B45 or whatever and you can't and it still doesn't work on your computer, then you get an issue ticket for us or contact one of the either myself or one of the community team like Paul or Richie, and we'll grab your output log from your viewer and see if we can figure out what's going on there.
Hey, can I piggyback on Inquisitive Loon's question there, Joshua? This is Sidearm. Inquisitive is from another virtual world with initials SL, and he is able to use older computers because there are, as you know, multiple third-party viewers for Second Life, and he was looking for an alternative viewer for Sciencebase. So after we all chortled a bit, we said there is no such thing, but I think he raised a good point. You guys are working like, banshees in the back room to make an Android and an iOS version. Yes. So is it possible that you could make a regular viewer that can, run with lower demands on older computers? And we asked Karsten about it, and he mentioned 2B45 can change the frame rate and can lower the resolution, and I've been doing that. But we just wanted to get that added on the table for your guys. Are there some things you've been learning about optimizing loading and whatever for the smartphone side that can be pushed back into the regular viewer for the cheaper older computer community, of which many people that we are trying to attract in the Sciencebase belong to?
Yeah, this is an ongoing problem for the adoption of virtual worlds, and it's something that, as you know, you've noted, we're not the only ones that have this problem, and that is a lot of people have really old or really slow computers, and those are not mutually inclusive. There, you can still buy brand new, even very expensive off-the-shelf computers, laptops, and desktops. Here's $2,000. Give me a brand new machine that was made yesterday, and it still struggles with Sciencebase or SL or other virtual worlds because a lot of manufacturers still put very, very low-end graphics cards in their machines, even on bane of our existence is you go on Apple's website and you buy a brand new 15-inch MacBook Pro, you drop $2,000 on it, and you get an Intel video card, and it just doesn't cut it. Yeah, exactly. Intel integrated graphics, and like I said, even what people traditionally view as high-end laptops, like of Apple as a premium offering, but you go and you buy, you drop $2,000-3,000 on an Apple MacBook Pro, and you get Intel integrated graphics. And people get upset because they're like, I just spent $3,000 on this computer. It's brand new. I shouldn't have a problem with this. And we're like, well, you don't have the hardware for it. So the machine you bought just doesn't have the hardware. So, and then of course, this is also a problem that, you can have machines that were, top of the line, super fast, had the best video card, 8 years ago. And of course, they're out of date now. So they have a similar problem. And we have been putting a lot of work into, like you noted, there's a lot of optimizations in 2B45 and 2B series viewers. There's frame rates, there's disabling features, there's lowering draw distance, there's dynamic resolution thing that's in there, which we actually added originally for the mobile series viewers. But we were like, it's there. We should make it available to the desktop version too, and that does help a lot. However, to your broader point there, it is an interesting idea. One thing that creators who've uploaded regions, for example, to Sciencebase are aware of, or may not be aware of, this might be new information, is that we've always had a setting in there where you could platform specific settings, and so you can upload your region one time, but when you upload your region, we automatically make separate build versions of it. We make a standalone desktop version of it. We make a mobile version of it. We're planning to support consoles coming up, so it makes a special console version of it, and we automatically build those branches for you. And you can go in there and you can say, okay, the maximum texture size on desktop is 2048, but the maximum texture size on mobile version is 512. I do want reflection probes in the desktop, but I don't want them in the mobile version. You kind of fine tune that experience for what it's going to be like on the mobile version. And so tying that into your question is, maybe it's worth our time to think about adding, two desktop options. One is, if you have a powerful machine, you use the high desktop setting, and if you have a lower power machine, you use the low desktop setting, and then you could customize your content when you upload it, on what you're willing as a creator to lose for a lower powered machine to experience your environment. Because we already have built-in components for things where you can say not just how to optimize the region, upload it, but you can actually include or exclude items in the scene based on the platform that they're generated for as well. So you could wanted, for example, to have a different user interface for a mobile version of your region versus a desktop version. You can actually say canvases, use this one on mobile and use this one on desktop. But there's nothing that says that's limited to canvases. You can on mobile to use this particle system which generates less particles, versus if you're on desktop, use this system that generates more particles. Use this lower poly mesh instead of this higher poly mesh. That stuff's already built in there. The only thing we would have to do is, like I said, add an option for users who are logging in to say, I have a terrible machine. Please give me the slow desktop version of the content instead of the high desktop version of the content. That's an interesting idea that we probably should discuss. We can do. Like I said, there's a lot of optimizations that can be done already, but giving you that kind of direct control over, no, if you turn your graphics down to the lower setting, you're getting a completely different set of content than what you are on the high graphic settings. Could be useful. I suppose we could even just tie it in so that you can say, give me the mobile version, the one that's optimized for mobile version, and run that on your desktop as well. There's probably no reason that can't be done. And it would save you having to have yet another platform level settings tab in there. But yeah, there's a lot of optimization work's gone on, and there's definitely some potential there to give even more control over to optimizing that experience. Inquisitive Loon says you tried both the same result. Yeah, so if you can't get it to work, if 2B45 doesn't work, then if it runs but you can't load into a region or whatever, what we're going to want is your output log is the first step. And every time you run the viewer, it erases the old log and starts generating a new log for the new runtime session. So if you have a problem, you get stuck, loading's frozen, it won't go any further. Close your viewer. Go to, on Windows, it's under C users, whatever your username is, app data, local low, sine wave entertainment, and there's an output .log file in there. Get that to us, and that would be the first step to diagnosing why it won't finish loading on your machine.
Joshua, thank you for that extensive answer. Mimi made a point here that I wanted to ditto. Um, could you set it so that when you first, a new user that we've invited into ScienceBase downloads the viewer, that it automatically starts at the lowest demand settings. And then once they get it running, then they could go in and, jack it up to the higher settings and, see how high they can go. When I ran 2B45, and maybe it's because it just read my 1B44 settings, so maybe you already do this, but when I ran 2B45, it just came in, blam, you are at high and you are at full resolution and you are at 60 frames per second.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you are correct there that the 1B and 2B series viewers, they don't distinguish settings when they share settings. The only times that you would have separate settings is if you installed like a custom branded viewer for different grid that would have its own settings, but the main grid viewer, the ScienceBase viewer, is going to use the same settings file and the same, like, remember my password settings and that kind of stuff, from when you're jumping between 1B and 2. So yeah, it picked up your 1B44 settings and ran with it. But yeah, to your point there though, as far as like starting off in the lowest settings, that's actually something we've been talking about internally. We actually already do that with the Mac viewer because of aforementioned reasons. Brand new Apple computers have bad video cards in them, so we automatically start those off at low settings. And there's definitely a case to be made for doing that with the desktop viewer as well. Although I will say, the desktop viewer does have a settings button right on the login screen, so you can adjust all of those graphic settings before you actually log in. Just the bottom right corner, big settings button, click that, go to graphics, down the fastest. You can change that before you actually log in on it. Yeah,
I think Mimi's point is they don't know all that. We're getting new users in. They say, go here and run it and download it and log in and meet us. And they don't know, before you do that, run down over there and turn everything
yeah,
on.
that's a reasonable point. And it's actually something we were talking about just yesterday was updating our login screen, to do a couple of things to make especially the settings more prominent. And it might be part of that is we could actually put a thing on there that says, hey, your settings have been set to low or medium by default or whatever. Press this to change it. So it's right there before they log in. One of the to-do items is not just enter your username and password, but it's like, hey, check your settings, enter your username, enter your password, and we can kind of like step walk them through that. There is some merit to say, yeah, we'll start you off on the lowest setting always, and then you have to turn it up. But you kind of get the inverse problem of that with that, and that is, people are going to log in with their $2,000, $3,000 high-end custom-built gaming machine, 2080 RTXs in, and they log in, and they're like, wow, terrible. This is a a modern gaming engine, but there's no shadows. I can only see 20 meters because my draw distance is turned down. Now, granted, those people are probably more likely to go looking for graphic settings, but it's not a great experience, a first experience for them versus helping a great first experience for other people. So what I would like to do is that login update where it's just first thing it has you do is maybe take those fast, those 4 preset buttons on the graphics tab and just stick them straight on the login screen.
Cool. Artemis made a point way up there about something is triggering Norton. I just wanted to make sure you saw that.
Yeah, there's a couple things about that. Probably what you might be seeing right now is that Windows applications like Apple Mac applications have to be signed. They have to be certified, and it's much less. It's a huge pain on Apple machines, but on Windows it's actually fairly straightforward. But the issue is our certificate expired recently, which is something that happens. I mean, these certificates have like 1, 2, and 3 year lifespans on them, and then you have to go get a new one. And ours just expired recently, so we got a new one. And antivirus software is wary of new updated certificates. So I think you have to get like 500 installs or 1,000 installs or something with a new certificate, and then it's like, okay, I'll give that one a pass. It's not new, so it may be flipping a few people's antivirus software until it's aged up a little bit, and then the antivirus software will ignore it. Yeah, just to your point a minute ago, if I missed a question, feel free to ask it again. Stuff often gets lost in the chat scroll back. We're actually have a thing I built the other day where it gives you a place to submit a question that goes into a queue, and then I can just read off the top of that queue. So we were actually talking before the office hours here that we might start using that for next week's event, just because it'll be easy. Questions won't get lost. They go into a queue. I can just read off as they come in.
That Slido that Artemis is mentioning, Joshua, I was in a conference in January and they did that. You just give people the link, they go to it, and it says, Joshua Tech Hour, whatever his code, and you can enter the questions. But if you see a question somebody else asked that you like, you can just upvote it. So
interesting. The upvote idea is an interesting one. We can look into that. Like I said, we actually have a thing built in, or a little a furniture item now that we can drop into the read that basically does the same thing. It doesn't have the voting on it, but we could add the voting on it. But right now it's just like the one we used most recently has like a big spinning question mark, and you click that and it lets you type in a question and submit it, and then those of us who are part of or running the event have a little login box where we can log in, and questions that come up in a queue, and we pull them up and read them off, dismiss them, go on to the next question. So we might use that.
I'm just doing it because I thought instead of inventing our own sine wave international special upvoting system, just use one that's already out there, and spend your time on optimizing the code. But yeah. I digress.
Yeah, no, we already kind of have that build. Like I said, it doesn't have the voting in, so I'll look at that. It might make sense that we could just have that pop up in like a browser window on the HUD, because we have the ability to just stop a browser screen on your display there. So it could just be something in the corner that pulls up Slido or something like that. That might be a way to go. We'll look at it for next office hours. We may experiment with a couple different options and see which one works the best and which. Yeah, the voting is a good idea. Yeah, the voting just sorts what the majority of the audience really wants answered. Yeah, I get that. Whether that makes sense for something like this, I think the biggest, the number of questions coming in isn't that overwhelming. We usually get to most of them in the event anyway. But I would say the biggest kind of pro for using something like Slido is potentially people who are watching on like the Twitch stream and YouTube could participate as well without having to come here and click the question submitter. So it might make sense to use it just for that reason. We could put that out there at the top of the hour and say, if you want to submit questions or vote on questions, you can do that even just while watching the Twitch or YouTube without logging in. So that's actually a pretty good idea. I'll take a look at Slido and see if it's something we could set up for next week.
I have one question. How do you remember all these ideas that you like and that you're going to look into? Is your secretary there or your bot?
No, actually, I just keep I have 2 monitors, and on one monitor is Sciencebase, on the other monitor is me taking notes, and then afterwards those notes get compiled. We have a big project management system. So notes get dispersed to things that were discussed during office hours get dispersed to the other engineer management team necessary, for things that get brought up here, and we can talk about those. And if it makes sense, they go on to our project management as ask.
Josh, read my question.
Which
He's
question
actually
is that?
covered in post-it notes. He's yellow.
Yeah, I actually do have. Yeah, you joke, but I actually make extensive use of Windows's built-in sticky notes thing. So I just have like sticky notes all over my secondary monitor. So somebody had a question that I missed.
I'll just ask it really quick.
Okay.
Because it
Oh,
was
that-
a lot to type. I know you guys are really focused on the viewer, making sure all that's working. We kind of lightly discussed this in Discord. Can we be expecting any more additions to the scripting library? I think some examples would be super helpful. And as a second question, this is a two-parter, but all two-parter. Um, regarding the auction and transferable items, can we see a way to make things not transferable? Because, for instance, the bed that I recently made, I wanted to create a bundle where I put all of the colors, everything that you could have, or with the piano room that I made too. I wanted to put everything in there. But the issue that I'll run into is that defeats if they can get that bundle and then sell what they don't want. Say they only wanted 3 colors, they could just sell the rest of the other colors. It defeats the purpose of giving someone a deal for buying all the colors. You
no,
know,
I
so is there
absolutely
gonna
agree.
be a way that we can see that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually something that's been on the to-do list for quite a while, and it actually, I know it came up in Discord last week too. I don't know if it was if that's what the particular time you're talking about, but we are aware it was being discussed in Discord recently, and we were actually having a chat about that among the developers last week. And we're probably going to make that a higher priority to finish because, like I said, it's been kind of had some of the framework laid for it, and it's been on the to-do list to finish for a while. It just got deprioritized, but it's something that I agree that we need to bring back up and give creators more control over how their stuff is used, how it's distributed. Yeah, Gabby mentioned it last week as well, and I know there were some other people discussing it in the
Yeah.
Discord. And like I said, we do have people in the Discord who, our community team there. All of our developers are there as well, although we're not always actively chatting. We do to the ground there, and so we're aware that it's been an issue that's come up quite a lot over the last week or two. So we'd like to go ahead and prioritize that and finish the implementation of that. It's probably going to land on Alan's desk. We were discussing it last week, so yes, that's going to happen. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I'll update you more on that when we actually get that put in. As far as your first part of that question was completely unrelated. The additional scripting examples. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like the more examples we get up, it's kind of more work for us in the short term, but less work in the long term, and that's a fun thing to have to balance. Is if we put up examples, then we can point people to those examples in the future when they ask questions, versus having to answer the question over and over again. So yeah, we would like to put up more scripting examples. I think there's only like 5 or 6 up on our GitHub right now. We've got a bunch of stuff we could put up there because we got a ton of stuff that we've been doing for one project or another. We would just have to clear it on an individual basis. Like, does it make sense to put this up there? Is this a good example or is this going to be too confusing? So yeah, we should probably
Long story short, I just want a texture changer example. Thanks.
I am actually working on that in the background. So as soon as I do get.
Okay, so yeah, Richie's actually the one that's been uploading some of the examples to the GitHub. So we may feed him some more scripts to put up there as well that I've got sitting around, just as examples. And it sounds like he's working on. I know. Uli had a position change or an animation changer, but I don't think we've ever released any kind of, or I don't think anybody I know of has ever released any kind of texture changer. The tricky part with texture change is that the persistence side of it, changing the texture is easy, but logging out and coming back and still having that texture there is here on any kind of item like that, because what happens is when you log in, that item has to restart itself, reload, and say, was my texture ever manually changed? If it was, I got to put that change back to the way it was, because when you shut down, it just gets erased. That instance is on, and so when next time it starts back up, it's starting back up with its default settings, and it has to restore itself.
If you do have any ideas of things that you'd like scripted, one of us know.
Yeah,
put something together. We can.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a particular request there, but if you have other particular requests that you want to that you would like to see some examples for, then we'll see if we can get some out. Like I said, I have a ton of stuff that I've scripted, especially over the last year or whatever. That's just, I've got Lua scripts all over the place. So some of them might make sense to just put out there as examples. Some of them definitely will not. Some of them are very bespoke, and some of them are thousands of lines, and it's not going to be worth putting out there for an example for somebody to try and sift through and figure out what it's doing and how to adapt it for their own uses. But we've got a bunch of smaller scripts sitting around that might just make sense to throw up there and let people look at.
Hey, Joshua, Lee Mill asked questions just before Cub piped up. If you scroll up, you'll see
yeah,
Lee.
Okay, yep, I see that. Question one is Sciencebase considering making it possible to bind assets to a region? I saw someone suggest this once. I'm not sure what you mean by bind. We do have the ability to embed assets into a region right now. So if you if you make a floor component in your region, you can say these furniture items come by default with this region, and they'll show up in the room editor, or at least they will when we turn on. That's one of the pending features. Already do the embedding. If you mean making it so that like a particular furniture item can only be rezzed in a particular region and nowhere else. I've seen some custom Lua scripting examples for that. I actually made a custom Lua scripting example for that for somebody who has a white label grid. Super simple Lua script. So that's one option. As far as making it something like that a built-in part of like the furniture component, wouldn't be hard. I guess my question would be: is what is your use case, and is that a generalized enough use case that it makes sense for us to have a built-in solution for that, or again, like I said, you can just do that sort of thing. So if you want to message me with some exactly what it is you're trying to do, that it wouldn't be difficult to that. Second question is it possible to create special assets for VIPs, I assume is what you're saying, for VIPs that are VIPs. Am I reading that right? For your only your region, I think that was covered by question number one. Is that's related to question number one? Yes, it is possible to do with Lua scripts. No, it's currently not a built-in way to do that, but would be easy to add. Can you create custom badges just for your region? So you want like profile badges that people can only wear in your region or can only earn in your region. I think the badges are tied to the achievement system, so it is possible to make custom achievements that put those badges in your profile, and if they're your achievements, yeah, you get to decide that they're only achieved in your region and how that happens. Once the badge is there, though, I mean, it's going to show up in their profile no matter where they go. So I don't think it makes sense to limit the visibility of those badges, but you can absolutely limit the earning of those badges to your want to. Does that answer your question? If not, feel free to ask with additional detail, and I'll see if I can go over that some more. Let's see if there's any other questions that I missed. Will we ever be able to make our own titles? PG, of course. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Precisely for the reason you just tagged on to the end there, is custom titles would probably, we'd have to make sure that people weren't walking around with obscene titles or, things like that. So we have discussed, and it's in the works, the idea that grid owners can assign titles as necessary to their people for like corporate purposes. We might add a way to register for a title. Maybe we can make that. I know we have an option right now where you can pay some amount of gold or silver, I forget, and change your name. So we could add a way to to do that same process for a title, and then like I said again, we probably have to have somebody okay it, just because we wouldn't want obscene titles running around. But we have the same problem with names. We have to make sure people with obscene. The same
Joshua,
thing on that process.
That brings up another little thing that these little labels that hover over the heads, they struck me as odd. Like the first week I got in, and then somebody explained, well, if it's P, it's because I'm a premium member. And I said, oh, you mean you paid? Yes, that's right. And then A, I said, what is A? And then somebody said, well, I'm an adult. No, I'm an admin. No, I'm on staff. But I find them distracting and annoying, and then I don't see them anymore. Except today, somebody showed up and they suddenly had an A over their head. And Spiral has taught me that the regional admin can, turn off those hovering letters. But to me, I would recommend that the letters be off by default, and then they can be turned on. And the reason is that some of the people on my mini user case study team, one of them said, it's just about money here. I came into the welcome center and I saw the greedy man on a poster, money, 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 money. And then apparently he ran into some trollers or something, and they were asking him to give them gold and asking him to give them silver, and he didn't know the difference. And asking him to give them roses, which are harmless, but he didn't know. I mean, he's a noob. He's a baby, as Artemis calls him. But these letters kind of reinforce that, well, I'm a P and you're not, or I'm an A and you're not. So just a thought for the future is, as a default, don't show those hovery thingies unless somebody wants to.
Yeah, people. It's an interesting. It's an interesting problem because it's partly a social problem more than a technical problem. Like you have people, like you said, who showed up and were like hounding him for profile badges. It sounds like they weren't asking for money; they were asking for the social, like I said, the roses and the gold and silver badges that you can get by clicking in somebody's profile, which is different from the actual currency. It's probably something we should differentiate better in there. Because like you said, it does feel weird. Someone comes like, "Hey, give me gold," when they don't mean gold. They mean profile gold, which is a weird distinction. But I mean, we're never going to be able to engineer people, engineer away the social problem of people showing up and begging for those accolades. We can obviously moderate it in particular regions, especially like the Welcome Center, which we try to have guides and stuff there to kind of to help control that. As far as the letters go, I don't know. I agree with you that they're not terribly informative, and if they're not being informative, then maybe they're just taking up screen space for no reason.
Let me add a little bit there. P in the U.S. is what the U.S. Department of Agriculture stamps on the side of an approved side of beef, prime beef.
Yeah,
A is the scarlet letter, which we all studied in English class, which means you're an adulteress. So at least change it to say staff.
Yeah,
And remember,
I'm guessing that somebody picked A for that for administrator, for because it's for admin type staff. That is a funny perspective on it though. That yeah, the A is also the scarlet letter. I don't know that people would necessarily jump to that conclusion, or if they did think of that, then go, oh yeah, that must be the reason it's there. I think most people would probably realize, you know, first of all, it's not scarlet, it's white, but also they probably would assume that it had some other meaning, even if they made the amusing connection there. Likewise, I don't think anybody's going to see and think that we're branding people as approved levels of beef. That is also amusing, but I don't think it's a concern. I think the general concern there is this isn't adequately conveying what it's meant to convey, so it's just causing confusion. And then it's one of those things where it's like if you're a new person to the system, you already have a lot to take in. And the more we insist you take in right up front, then then the more confusing, the steeper that curve feels when you're getting into it. So I think there's definitely an argument to be made there for minimizing the amount of information that is thrown at you all at once, and then rolling out that information in either a better way or a progressive way, rather than people going, "Hey, what is that? What does the P mean?" So yeah, I'm taking that to definitely taking down notes for that. Again, I don't think people are going to be worried that we're branding everyone as an adulterer, but it definitely, from a new user perspective, it could be more informative because you're right, it doesn't say what is an A, what is a P, other letter that might.
Just to share a second viewpoint, I knew from the exact second I logged in that it was admin and premium.
Well, yeah, but you are somebody who has experience with prior virtual worlds and that sort of thing. It could be very different for somebody who's logging in who's like, this is my first virtual world. I just downloaded it, installed it. I've never done one of these before. Then the whole notion of somebody being an administrator or somebody having a premium account might not even occur to them. They may not have ever been in a situation where that distinction existed or was important. So yeah, it's probably totally fine for people who are comfortable with virtual worlds already, but it's more to the point of the onboarding experience for brand new people who are trying virtual worlds for the first time needs to be tailored to them, and stuff that's more information, more complexity is something that experienced users can ask for and go through the settings panel or whatever and be like, yeah, show me more information, show me account status over somebody's head or something like that. So yeah, new users are the issue, not established users. That's something we'll look at. It might be something that's like, okay, maybe we'll just turn this on automatically after you've been here for 3 days or something.
If any of the community team had been given $1 for every time we asked the question, what?
Yeah, that this change was made quite long ago, and I assume the idea was meant to be, the A, for example, means that okay, that person is is a staff or is somebody who's important in this region or for the system, and so if I ask them questions or approach them, then they're not just some random user. But that kind of got supplanted by the fact that we have like staff titles now, and so maybe the A and the P are just extracting information. I suppose go ahead.
Artemis has a question up there about having a coding jam.
A coding jam would be really cool, actually. Let me find the exact question here. In more coding jam using a mini game kit or something, 3 or 4 hours in Twitch and live streams, hands-on help and community learning. Yeah, I mean that's a great idea. I would love to be able to do something like that. It's just it's a matter of time. Like if we're taking, because that would be, I got to drag Paul over to do streaming, and I probably would have Michelle or Dixie or Richie or other people here helping to answer questions and getting people set up. If people have never set up as creators before, or need help getting the editor pack setting, we would need that extra support staff. So it's pulling in a bunch of staff, developers, and community people, and all of that. Because there's gonna be a setup period and all that. So you're talking about like, that could essentially be our entire day for a group of people promoting, setting that up, and doing that kind of thing. So we it's a worthwhile thing to do, but then it's like, if we have all these people spending all day just doing this, what's not getting done as a result? That is something I would love to have, a talented community creator to take on something like that. Be like, hey, I know Lua, I know Sciencebase, and we would be happy to promote that kind of thing. Post it on our social media and our event system, and that where we can say, hey, there's a code jam going on here, and provide resources for that. But I as far as us doing it and putting all of our staff on it, we might be able to do that occasionally, but I don't think that's something that's going to make sense for us to do on a regular basis, given the staff that we have, to pull people off of doing things like fixing Gabby's lashes. So it's like we can fix stuff, or we can do code jams. So it's a priority issue there.
I can kind of second Josh on that, because I did do a video scripting. I thought it was only going to take me a couple.
You're kind of breaking up there, Richie.
Yeah, I thought it was only going to take me a couple of hours to do it, and it ended up taking a whole day just to do one.
Yeah, no, those kind of events, even if you say the actual code jam is from 1 to 5 o'clock, that's not all the time that it takes. Like, we're going to get up that morning, and we're going to be preparing materials, script examples, making sure the regions are set up, doing promotional stuff, helping people get set up and into the code jam in the first place. And then afterwards it's like, okay, well, now we've got this, we have to, take the video and edit the video and turn that into something that we can upload as a permanent thing that other people can then watch. And it would literally be all day to even do just like a few hours of a code jam. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's something I would personally love to do. It's just a matter of, is that something that makes sense as a priority for us right now? I think it would probably make more sense if it was something that was community organized, and we'd be happy to support it as much as possible. But actually throwing staffing on it, it'd be taking us away from doing stuff which I think everybody would rather having us do, which is doing the bug fixes, adding new features like that. So
what I'd like to do, Sidearm here, what I would like to do actually, Josh and Richie, is one time, sometime in the next month or 2 or 3, whatever, that we, the residents, have an event for you to come and be entertained and not bug you with anything about the techie stuff. Just entertain you. I don't know.
We'd love that.
I know you need it, and we'd be happy to do it because we have a lot of talent.
Well,
I don't know about a lot of talent, but
my presence alone is your entertainment.
That's right. All we need is to put Cub on stage and give him a microphone. But yeah, no, if you want to organize events, and it's events that you specifically want to have, invite staff members to, then availability is a difficult term one in that, because if we have people literally on opposite sides of the planet, so picking a time that makes sense for people to be there, that's always the hard part. Like, organizing internal meetings is crazy. We've got people like Adam's in Australia. He stayed up all night last night to do a presentation in what was the middle of the night for him, and then he crashed, and he might still be sleeping. But and then we've got people in the US and in India and in China and Australia and the UK and Germany, and so it'd be about like, okay, if you pick a time, there's probably going to be people who can't make it, but then there would be other people who could, and what other things they have on their schedule.
I was reading the chat there, by the way, and Art, if you're on about doing an event to teach people, like Josh says, you've got all of the staff support if you need us.
Yeah, absolutely. If you need resources for that, if you need a region to do it in, if you need, whatever we can do to make that happen, we do have some might help for something like that is, we've mentioned we have like webcam and screen share tools, so we could set that up so that, if you want to share your screen and show your code or show Unity people who are there. And likewise, we found that it's very useful for debugging other people's problems too. If somebody is having a problem with their viewer, having a problem with content, or can't get script to work, rather than figuring out how to try and pass that stuff back and forth, they can just go, "Oh, let me share my screen," and you can script on my screen as I'm writing it. It can be very useful for that kind of thing. So I'd love to facilitate something like that. I just don't know that any of us would have the time to prepare and set up and lead the whole 4-hour game jam or whatever.
You missed my question earlier, so I'm gonna ask it now.
Feel free. I often miss questions just because they scroll back on the history, so everybody's welcome to always re-ask questions.
It's okay. I just don't want to type it because I'm lazy.
That's fine. You can ask it.
Can we get like a very defined version of what qualifies something to be quote mature content? Because I was trying to upload. I have this sofa that I made that and posters with weed and everything on them, and I kind of thought maybe that was too mature, and I can't remember who, but someone did tell me that I shouldn't upload it because it'll get. But then another person who I will leave unnamed has told me that if you can see it on MTV, then it's fine in Sciencebase. So I think I just need like a little bit more of, because I'm trying to push the envelope, and then I saw like a weed plant on the shop, but it wasn't called weed, so
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from, and as Sidearm points out, this is a question that's been struggled with for the entirety of the human experience, the entirety of the time we've had media to distribute. How do we classify this media? Internally, yeah, we do actually go by the idea of if it's on MTV, fine. Obviously they push the envelope in a lot of ways, but there are some strict hard lines that get followed there. We have very strict as far as like if you're making clothing or something, gotta have the bits covered. Even like something like a very tiny bikini is still okay because things are covered. Like you bikinis on even like micro bikinis on MTV or whatever as well. It can't be sheer or something because otherwise it defeats the point. But when it comes to the content like weed and stuff, yeah, it's a little bit more nebulous of a question, just because the legality.
It's on MTV.
Yeah, that's exactly. But it's a thing where it's like nobody questions the legality of bikinis, but when it comes to drugs or other controlled substances, that varies so much from place to place. Probably it's something I can get more policy clarification on. Like you said, it is on MTV. We do apparently already have some content that
I mostly just need a clarification on that one thing, I guess.
On the weed thing specifically.
Yeah, because as you know, like that's a running theme of things that I do. Like it's a running theme that I use. So
it's a running theme in your life.
Yeah, I just want to know if I can use it.
Yeah, and I don't see that being a problem. I will seek out some clarification for you from the management team as far as whether that's something that's specifically prohibited. Again, like we do generally follow if you get on MTV, then it's going to be here too. That being said, a lot of TV channels don't necessarily have to deal with international implications. So let me follow up with you on that. I will send it to the management team today and see if we can get a solid answer on that. I don't think
I think Gabby might have forgot to told me. I'm reading what she's saying, and I think she did actually already get an official answer on why that's not allowed. So it
yeah,
might
and then
not be.
and her answer is the international thing that I was just mentioning. Even like
Yeah.
TV channels, they aren't necessarily showing the same content. Even if you can get MTV in the UK and MTV in the US, they're not necessarily showing the same programming. They're not necessarily showing the same ads, and even if they're showing the same ads by the same company, they have their own consumer boards, their own advertising review boards, and they may say, oh, you can say that word here, but the version in the UK has that word changed to a different word. Or so. Yeah, our issue is a matter of international rules. Varies everywhere you go. Like I said, the things like when it comes to adult content in terms of like nudity and clothing and stuff like that, that's pretty much the same everywhere. But controlled substances is a completely different question.
Also,
Hey, before Les, whatever your name is, Josh. Before we go, and speaking of Gabby, Mimi made a point of doing a shout out at her event this morning, and I want to ditto it. Gabby has gotten a Getting Started as a Creator video posted on the Sciencebase Hub, and I just pasted the link there. So I'm going to go look at it later, but shout out to Gabby for that. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know she's been posting some videos, tutorials of her work on the Facebook group as well, which is fantastic. I'm going to pop over real quick and get have a look at this video. Getting Started as a Creator. The website seems kind of slow, but it's loading. So yeah, that's fantastic. There's more of that is possible, because one of those things, it's like, we'd love to provide as much content as possible, but we have a finite number of people. So anybody who wants to create content like this is much appreciated as well.
Quick piggyback: is the adult grid dead in the water?
It's not as far as I know, but their plans may have. Something we're talking about is terms of like, when the coronavirus happened, a lot of people pulled back from new projects for funding, and I know that they had some outside funding sources. So we are. We're having a meeting with them to figure out where they are, what their goals for the rest of the year are, and whether they have the funding to stick with their original plan, or whether that's going to have to be revised or not.
Well, make sure they know I've got plenty of dungeon content prepared.
I'm sure that would be useful. I will. Yeah, that's something that's like. That is a project that's being done on Sciencebase, but it's not being done by Sciencebase. So I can't necessarily speak for them directly. We're obviously in communication with them, and in a support capacity. But that's not something that Sciencebase ourselves are doing or participating in. That's just a white label grid. So they've got their own grid, and there's rules they have to abide by when setting it up, and made with them international agreements around things like what could be considered porn and that kind of stuff. So they have to abide by all that, age verification and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's a project they're doing using our platform. That's not a project that we are doing. So I will see if I can get an update from them. I'll maybe send you a message about it. But that's not something I can just give you a direct status update about.
Okay, that's fine. I was just curious.
Our current plan is still the public grid. Our grid, the Sciencebase grid, is PG-13 basically. So that hasn't changed. If that ever changes, we'll let you know. If we ever decide to do our own adult grid of any kind, which I don't foresee, but if that happens, we'll let you know. Yeah, I'll see if I can get an update on that particular project. Well, yeah, I mean, the age limit is 16 plus, but when we say PG-13, we're talking about like the rating guidelines. But yeah, no, the age limit is 16 up on the grid for people on there. But content wise, we were like, you know, kind of going PG-13 on the content. I realized that may be a confusing distinction, but yeah, the age limit is still 16. That's not it hasn't changed, isn't likely to change. If we ever decided to have a lower age limit, that we would probably have a separate grid for that, or at least set up some kind of method for controlling what minors had access to, but we currently had no plans to do that. That's fine if you want to call it PG-16.
Well, if it ever gets spicier, I'm ready.
Yeah, I had a feeling you would be. So we're about 10 after the hour here. So yeah, and Gabby's lashes. Yeah. Let me poke the Shanghai team. They'll be up in 7 or 8 hours probably, because it's the middle of the night over there at the moment. But we have 2 people over there who have that on their desks. Yeah, the code jam is actually it is a good idea, and I would like to see that pursued. If you want to start a chat about it, I think you've got my Skype already. You know, you can send me a message there as well if you've got some ideas or some plans come together for that. Let me know. Surrey, I'm not sure who you're talking to. Have time for an audio chat? Are you talking to me or somebody else? Wrong chat window. Okay, just wanted to clarify there. So yeah, if there's any last minute questions, you can throw them at me. Otherwise, we're kind of 10 after here. So I've got to wrap up pretty soon because I have another meeting coming up this afternoon.
Josh, I just want to thank you again for continuing to have Tech Hour week after week after week. From my point of view, it's cumulatively grown as the channel for us to regularly interact with you and vice versa. So thank you for doing that. Please continue doing that. I look forward to it every week.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I look forward to this as well. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, during the week, even if you can send me a Skype chat or whatever, but I'm often doing 10 things at once, so I may not be able to get back to you or engage directly in dialogue with you. It might be like, yeah, I'll get an answer for you, you know, later or whatever. These tech hours are nice because I show up here. I'm not doing anything else. I'm focused on this, and we can just have that conversation. And that's something I think is really valuable, and I look forward to it every week. So yeah, we're going to keep doing this.
It's always so nice to hear you in your politician voice.
This is just my voice. This is just how I talk. But
Hey,
yeah,
Josh,
yeah, no
Josh, can
problem.
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
If you don't have any objections, I'd like to take some of the questions and pass them over to you next week, maybe on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to send us questions ahead of time, you can send them to any of us, and we have a Tech Hour chat that we maintain, a group chat on Skype. So any questions that you pass to the staff members will get dropped in there, and then we can review them for next week. But yeah, we always welcome sending us questions ahead of time, and then we'll that's useful because that way when we start the program, we can just address those pre-questions right off the bat before we get into the live questions.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. What I can do is I can post it in the fan site, and because there were a lot of them that just kind of went right past everybody. So I thought if I put that out there, I can one of you.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and I'm going to look into that website for submitting and upvoting questions. I think that would be very useful, and then people can just spread that link around and add their questions to it. We can like clear it off every Monday and let people start submitting questions for that week's show a couple days early, and then people will have a chance to upvote them and participate, even if watching on Twitch or YouTube.
So, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll see y'all later.
Yeah, no problem. Take care, everyone. And if you run into any issues or if you have specific problems that you need looked into, feel free to message us one-on-one, and we'll have a look at that. So have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week.
All right, meeting's over, everyone. Disperse.
No, we're staying for a party now. We're staying for this party that you promised us.
Who's having a party? I want to go to the party. Am I invited?
Yes, you
You're
are.
all-
Start dancing.
You are always invited.
Cub, your job is to start entertaining Lesiar and Josh right